My name's David Greene. I'm senior partner of Edwin Co. And I'm going to talk about commissions in a normal circumstance in which a business or an individual will employ someone, a broker or an agent, to secure some service for them, and there will be a commission paid for securing that service. So we're talking about the everyday circumstance in which a small business or an individual wants to secure, for instance, a loan or indeed a contract, supply contract such as energy, and they go to a broker and the broker says that they will look at the market and secure for them the best possible price, or at least a competitive price. And in that circumstance, the broker owes duties to the customer. And those duties arise because of the relationship in which the broker specifically says, I will secure for you at the best price possible, or as I say, a competitive price. So as far as the customer is concerned, the broker is doing their best to do that. Duties arise on the broker to ensure that they act independently to secure the best or competitive price. And the customer relies on that independence to ensure that that broker is not in any way compromised and is indeed seeking precisely what they've said they'll seek, which is the best or a competitive price. And there has been quite a lot of publicity in relation to certain types of contracts in which a broker is employed by the customer, a small business or an individual. But in fact, as it turns out, the broker hasn't been independent because they are receiving a commission from the supplier. The broker owes duties of good faith. And if the broker's position and independence is in any way compromised, that may be a breach of that duty to the customer. And that might give rise to rights for the customer in the event that they find out that in fact there has been a commission paid by the supplier. Because as one can see, if the supplier is paying the broker a commission, that compromises the independence of the broker. And sometimes a broker is appointed also not just to secure the best price possible or a competitive price, but also to act as agent to enter into the contract. And that also gives rise to obligations on the part of the broker, or in this case, agent. What has become clear over the past few years is that quite often the supplier is in fact paying the broker a commission that is either a secret commission or a semi-secret commission. And I'll explain those two terms, which are important, just in a few moments. If a secret commission or semi-secret commission is being paid, one can understand very readily is that compromises the independence of the broker. And that independence is compromised by both the broker and the supplier, and that gives rise to rights in relation to both. Whether a commission is secret or semi-secret very much depends on the terms of the contract with the broker. Quite often the broker is appointed as an agent and has special responsibilities, but if there is no mention of any commission being paid by the supplier to the broker, then in those circumstances, if a commission is paid, it will be a secret commission. And as we've covered, there will be a compromise of the independence of the broker. As ever in contract, it will depend on the terms and conditions, not only of the contract between the customer and the broker, but also the customer and the supplier. Sometimes in those terms and conditions, which can be very long, very complex, you may find that there is a reference to some form of commission being paid. But that reference has to be quite explicit. Not only that a commission may be paid from the supplier to the broker, but also the quantification of that payment that might be made, so that the customer has a measurement of exactly What is the relationship between them, the broker, and the supplier in the circumstances? At root, the obligation of the broker is independence, so that the customer knows that they will be receiving a competitive or perhaps the best price possible. But if a payment is being made from the supplier to the broker, that will be compromise, which is why the customer needs to know exactly that a payment is being made and its quantification. If there is no mention of a commission being paid by the supplier to the broker, but in fact one is being paid, then in those circumstances that is a fully secret commission, and that gives rise to rights. If, as often happens, the terms and conditions say that a payment may be made to the broker, in those circumstances that's a semi-secret commission, and that also gives rise to rights. And those rights are not only against the broker but also the supplier. And if we just think about the way in which the position of the broker is compromised, we can equate a secret commission, or indeed a semi-secret commission, to a form of bribery. Because the broker will be looking not at the interests of the client, you, the customer, but be looking at what's the best for them in those circumstances. Who's going to pay them the highest commission? And that is a form of bribery and has consequences. Each case may be individual in that you look at the terms and conditions, both with the broker and the supplier, but also there may be some customs within the trade itself that everyone knows that the supplier is going to pay the broker some form of commission. Therefore, it's open and everyone knows it in those circumstances. There's nothing secret about it. Although in those circumstances, one would want to know about the quantification of that payment that's being made. And there is also a difference between sophisticated and unsophisticated customers. An unsophisticated customer will not know the ways of the trade. They may know nothing about a commission. They might not know how the broker is being paid, or in fact that the broker is being paid by the supplier. A sophisticated customer, and we can think of large companies, for instance, that may have their own particular department dealing with this supply, will be regarded as sophisticated, and in those circumstances, they might be said to know about a commission, and therefore it's not secret or indeed semi-secret. So, I, the customer, find out some way down the line that in fact the broker that I hired to get me the best price or the most competitive price was in fact being made a payment by the supplier, and therefore the independence was compromised. Well, in the circumstances, what can I do about it? What am I entitled to in those circumstances? Well, the law allows you to have a restitution, i.e., in the supply contract, you're entitled to all the money that you've paid to the supplier, but you have to give counter restitution, which means that you have to pay the supplier a reasonable price for what you've had. For instance, in an energy contract, that could be gas or electricity. Because you've had that, you can't give it back, and therefore you have to make some payment. The court thinks it reasonable, you make some payment. That will depend on the particular circumstances, the market, all of those issues will arise, but they'll have to be examined by the court. So in essence, you'll have a claim in damages in principle. How much that will be, what its worth will depend on the circumstances and the market, i.e. this difference between restitution and counter-restitution. So, if I find out that a commission has been paid and I know nothing of it, or I know very little of the detail, what do I need to look at? Where do I go? Well, first of all is you need to look at the terms and conditions. Terms and conditions of both the broker and the supplier, and see what's written in them. Sometimes they're difficult to find because this may have happened some years back, but usually you can find the terms and conditions that apply. And remember that you can go to the broker because the broker owes you a duty in relation to providing you with information about commissions. So what we do is we go to the broker and we say, please disclose to us what commissions have been paid and what have you received. And then we might go to the supplier subsequently and also ask them for information. So have a look at the terms and conditions, start thinking about gathering information from the broker or indeed the supplier, and then you can establish, do you have a claim against the supplier? As one can guess is, with higher energy bills and going back some years, these sorts of claims can be really very substantial for larger businesses. The commissions that are paid can be quite high. So it's worth gathering the information. Firstly, look at terms and conditions, both between the broker and you, and between the supplier and you, and see if there's any disclosure at all about a commission. Also, have a look at your bills, see if they tell you any story about any commissions that have been paid and the rates that you've been paying for instance, for energy contracts. Also, you should go to the broker and ask the broker to disclose to you whether or not they've received a commission. They have an obligation to you because they owe some duties of good faith to disclose to you exactly what they've received. Now, sometimes it can be difficult. You can go to the supplier as well, but that is also difficult. As you can guess, no one's going to volunteer to you exactly what commissions have been paid, when and where. But you do need to gather that information in order to take a claim forward. So if you suspect that the broker that you employed was receiving a secret commission from the supplier, come and talk to us. We'll help you gather the information that you need in order to assess a claim before you even take the claim. We could certainly secure information from the broker, and we can seek to secure information from the supplier so that you're in the best position before you start proceedings in order to consider the worth of them and indeed whether you should pursue them or